Hi guys. So I was having a conversation, about how men marry women who are like their mothers. So they look at women and they find something that looks like a representation of what their mothers were. Hence, o tla utlwa ba ba bitsa bo umama sekhaya. It's never my wife or my girlfriend or my partner. It's always something that has to do with, a representation of what a mother of the house should be, right? So they will go looking for women who are like their mothers to embody the vision they have of what a wife should be. And so this woman, because ki umama wasekaya, ki mme wa ko hae, that being said, this umama sekaya will look like a mother of that home, right? She is classified as umama wasekaya because for them that's symbolic of what a wife should be, right? But if you look at it, you will realize why I'm saying this becomes a little bit of a problem for women. So when you are viewed as umama wasekaya, you represent the dignity of that home, and the values and principles of that home is what you will embody by virtue of you being umama wasekaya, right? And you will be expected to dress a certain way, look a certain way, because you are a representation of that family, right? And because you are umama wasekaya, there are certain things that are not going to be okay for you to do. For example, they might have a problem with you drinking because their mothers probably didn't drink alcohol. Maybe even the way you dress. For example, you're expected to wear duk, bushweshwe, dipinifa, anything that looks like what a mother should look like. You will look like that. Long dresses, long skirts. You won't necessarily look like yourself. You will look like the mother of that house. Then what will happen is, because now you look like the mother of that house, you are their mother. You are your man's mother because you look like his mother. So because you look like his mother, you will have kids with him, bear children, look after them, look after him, look after the household, and embody the principles of that family because you are now his mother. Because you are now his mother, he has to now find a girlfriend because he already has his mother at home. And now that he has his mother at home, he has to find a girlfriend because when you are his mother, you love him unconditionally and you are obviously there at home. So when he looks for a girlfriend, he's going to look for someone who is the opposite of you. He won't go out looking for someone who is like his mother because he already has that person at home. Hence, when they look for girlfriends or women to have fun with outside of their wives, they will look for the opposite. A man will never cheat on his wife with a woman who looks like his wife. Then it means uharas tepu, and they're not about to start another household, right? Because they already have it. So they will look for a woman who is way different to the wife. For example, this woman may dress differently to the wife, maybe a little bit provocatively, because he has to look like the younger version of what he has at home. So when she looks like the younger version of what he has at home, then the side chick then looks like what a girlfriend should look like. Provocative. Sides provide an entertainment for these men. So, they will be more sexy, maybe more prettier in some instances, well looked after in some instances because they don't have children with him and they are not doing the emotional labor and the physical labor that comes with looking after them. So they will have time to look after themselves because they don't live with this man permanently. And because they don't live with him permanently, the wife is actually the one who gets to do all the hard stuff, dealing with his emotions, his feelings, his mood swings. Then it's the kids, then it's her, then it's the in-laws. The wife actually has a lot on her plate compared to the side. So because the side is not dealing with the family dynamics, he will then enjoy spending a little bit of time they have with the side because the side is actually meant to provide entertainment in areas where the wife can't. Because he knows he still has to provide the entertainment aspect of this because he obviously doesn't live with her permanently. But where it becomes a problem for Bo Mama Sekaya is that their needs end up not being catered for in ways that they should. Maybe they also want to be treated like girlfriends, taken on holidays, away from the kids, them dressing like themselves. Because remember, before you became a wife, Umama Wasekaya, you were a human being. You were a woman who was a girlfriend. And for some reason, once you became umama wasekhaya, that changed because you have to now uphold this image that is expected of you by society, because society has its own norms, and this is what we spoke about. All right, so society has these norms, and women are expected to behave and look a certain way once they assume the role of wives, right, or assume the position of a wife. Then the husbands, one, there isn't really a defined role for husbands, because men, obviously, in this life, because whatever is happening around men and centered around men, there aren't really norms set for men. For example, we don't really talk much about what a husband material is, but the minute a woman dresses up in their dog and they wear the shoshot, the traditional regalias and all of that, men automatically see wife material because of how they dress, right? But if you were to put a wife material versus a person who is not dressed modestly, men are prone to choose women that are a representation of what a wife should look like, and would therefore miss an opportunity to actually end up dating the type, because society will judge them based on the woman they chose and how the woman they chose look. So because they don't want to be rejected by society, they will then choose a perfect picture of what a wife should look like. So bomama sekhaya end up suffering in marriage because their husbands want to keep them at home whilst they now go out there looking for their girlfriends, right? And the reason a man will never leave their wife for a side chick is because a side chick, in the mind of a man who is having an affair, is that a side chick provides entertainment for this man, and because the side chick provides entertainment for this man in his mind thinks this woman sleeps around, even though this woman only sleeps with him. But because of how she is and how she entertains him, or how they spend time together, in his mind, this is only for entertainment and not to be wifed. Hence, when he divorces with his wife, he will never marry his side chick, unless if he is liberal in his thinking and he understands that whether a woman dresses provocatively or not, it doesn't define whether a woman should be um, a wife or not. Because remember, a wife is not um, the way a woman dresses is not a representation of whether she will be a good wife or not, because the outer appearance has nothing to do with whether a person is going to be a good wife or not. But because society creates these rules that, you know, give an idea of what each structure should look like and what a wife is and what a wife isn't, men are prone to choose women who look like their mother, because they would have gotten a picture of what a wife should look like from their mothers, because maybe they experienced their mothers being wives to their fathers, and their mothers were serving their fathers, food on a tray, kneeling down and doing all those things, and they are expecting women to do that. But I don't know who came up with these things. And they expect their wives to do those things in marriage. So even if the wives got an opportunity to travel with their men, on holiday, their wife is always going to be serving her husband, even on vacation. She will always consistently perform the role of a wife, even on vacation. So even in areas where she wanted to be sexy, even in areas where she wanted to look the part, be herself, outside the role of being a wife, there will still be an element of judgment when it comes to her physical appearance, because even on vacation, for example, it might be weird for her to be seen wearing a bikini, for example, because in the mind of this man, she still needs to be presentable, and her body essentially belongs to him. So he will always try to gatekeep her from being noticed by other men, specifically because he feels that that is his property and it should only belong to him. So in instances where this woman wanted to find a voice and she wanted to be herself, to look the part, to be sexy, even in the company of her kids and her husband, she won't be able to do that, because when you are a wife, there are certain things that you can't do anymore. Now you have to hide your body, cover up and do all of that, because you can't show your body to the rest of the world. If he were to travel with the side who is the girlfriend would be allowed to show off, because that is the girlfriend, and when he is with the girlfriend, he feels like he's the boyfriend now, and would want to show her off, and would want people to see him with this beautiful girl, or this side who is his girlfriend, because obviously his mother is at home, and he will be more free around her, and would let her be, because obviously she's not the wife. So she then ends up getting the experience of what another woman is not getting, in terms of the fun, in terms of being free, in terms of experiencing maybe the authenticity of this man. Because remember, at home he has to put up a front. At home he has to be this family man who is very respectable, and this family man who has kids, and the kids look up to him, and the wife obviously respects him, because this is the man God chose for her. And because of that, she has to serve, and he has to receive, and it's all a game that he has to put up with, because the responsibilities that are required of him in marriage require for him to act his role as a husband in areas where he actually shouldn't be acting out. Then even with her, marriage is a structure that now requires her to act a certain way, because if she doesn't, she will then be judged for not playing her part and playing her role. So Gamona, she has to act for the husband, she has to act for the in-laws, she goes to the in-laws, she has to behave a certain way and all of that. Because for the umama wasekaya, there are a lot of responsibilities on her plate, and she has to keep acting her part, whether it's at work, she has to be someone's wife, whether it's at home, she has to be someone's wife, whether it's even in areas where she's supposed to be herself. So if she has to marry a liberal man, for example, it would be easier, because this man would have probably healed the mother wound, because most of them want women who are a representation of what their mothers are, because they have mother wounds, they still want the nurturing element. So if a wife is a representation of what their mother looks like, and can nurture them in that instance, then um they will expect their wife to look like that. But if they healed their mother wounds, and they don't have issues with their moms, and their mothers, were emotionally present, and they guided them and all of that, then they will look for their type before they get married. Then they will marry women who are their types, whom they can have fun with, go to, vacation with, go to groove with, do brides and all of these things, and not be afraid to be seen with them in public, because they have married their type. They have married the girlfriends abona. They have married women who continue to be the girlfriends abona, even kolinyalong. So in that sense, yes, there are certain areas where maybe dress code is required. When you go to your in-laws, you dress a certain way. But even the standard itself that we have said, where when you go to your in-laws, you have to dress a certain way, those are standards that are set by society. Not that you have to go to your in-laws dress provocatively, but if you did, you'd be judged harshly. So you constantly have to live under the shadow of norms that were set by other people that we have nothing to do with. But because we want to fit into these structures, we end up not becoming ourselves. I saw a VAR where this woman was dancing, and her boobs are out, and she's wearing this really short dress, and married men are all up in her comments, saying things like, oh, ibele, what, and they have zoomed in on these men's lives, and have actually picked up that these men are married. And if you look at the commonalities between these men, is that how cheka le dress code ya basadi ba bona, that is a typical dress code ya bo umama wasekaya. So they have this, structure at home. The women are looking their part. I mean, they look dignified, modest also in how they dress, and they are the epitome of what a wife material should look like. But they still want the other elements, right? It's the excitement and this provocative dress code, which their wives are not. Which then takes me to my earlier point to say they want a representation of what a wife should look like. And once they have it, they get bored with that, because they are actually married to their mothers. And this is for a lack of using a better word, but Because they have their mothers, they now have to look for their girlfriends. And that's why now they will want to be all up in these comments everywhere on social media, wanting to comment on pictures and all of that. Because how checker even the comparison between where they are commenting and their wives, you'll see that these are two different women and two different characters, right? And that's why I'm saying, as women, before someone comes to you and says, I want to marry you, try and understand what it is they actually want to marry. Do they want to marry a representation of what their mothers were? Or do they want to marry you because not only are you their girlfriend, but you also have the ability to be their girlfriend even in marriage? Because you can meet someone who sees you as a girlfriend and eventually sees you as a wife, but once they wife you up, they then have expectations that you should change and become like their mother because they still haven't healed their mother wounds. Whereas in your case, there isn't really any comparison that you can make between what you expect from him as your husband, because there isn't really much comparison. Remember, when you were younger, you just saw your mother also catering to your father. And because you saw your mother catering to your father, automatically you will fall into the system that says this is what a wife material is. That's why even when in relationships, when we start dating, the only thing that we're doing is catering to the needs of our partners. You're already cooking for him, you're already cleaning for him, you're already doing his laundry, looking after his children, looking after his well-being, looking after his household. You end up becoming a wife before the appointed time. By the time you get married to this person, you are already exhausted because you started doing your role before he even made things official, which then means once you get into that system, you are already exhausted. But for you, you won't even see it as exhaustion because that's what wife materials do. I mean, your mother was a wife who did that. So you too continue the cycle of doing what your mother did. Whereas him, on the other hand, has no reference point. The only thing that he also saw was his mother catering to the needs of his father. However, the question that we should be asking is, when his father was receiving all of these things, how was he giving back to his mother? Chances are he was giving to his mother by way of providing, but her emotional needs were not met. Hence, he doesn't also provide emotional needs. He will then provide provision in the form of finance and all of that, maybe doing his duties here and there. But that's when you have to go back and do the homework now to say, if you were to be married, what kind of husband would you want for yourself? That is a question, because remember, all we ever saw was our mothers catering to our fathers. But what were our fathers doing for our mothers? Because that should also then be your reference point. But if we want to move outside of using our parents as a model for what a wife should look like and what a husband should look like, we then have to redefine what we want for ourselves in order for us to not repeat the mistakes of our parents, because they also saw what they saw from their own parents, and that's how the cycle continues. So if we want to have happy and healthier marriages, we have to actually start redefining things for ourselves so that we can have long lasting friendships with our partners, relations with our partners. And this, I believe, will get us to a point where we don't overcompensate in these relationships, but we also enjoy having people as our partners because we have redefined what love should be in our marriage. So that's something to think about.